Picture this. Gamescom's opening night live is rolling. Fans are waiting for the next big surprise. And then, boom, the Warhammer 40K community gets hit with something nobody saw coming. After 8 long years since Dawn of War 3, which split the fanbase and left the future of the series uncertain, we finally have confirmation that Dawn of War 4 is real. Not only that, it's bringing back the roots of the franchise with base building, large-scale strategy, and those classic RTS mechanics fans have been begging for. This isn't just another expansion or a remaster. It's a full-blown sequel with a 2026 release window. But here's the curveball. Relic, the studio behind the originals, isn't making it. Instead, German developer King Art Games is at the helm, which immediately raises questions, excitement, and a lot of speculation about whether this long-dormant giant can really rise again in the hands of a new team. The reveal came with a shiny CGI trailer, the kind that drops jaws but leaves you wanting to see actual gameplay. Even so, the trailer did its job. It reignited that fire among old-school strategy fans. Sure, people still remember the legendary Dawn of War 3 announcement trailer, which some argue was more memorable than the game itself. But Dawn of War 4's reveal had something that felt different. It was bold, confident, and positioned as a true rebirth. The crowd reaction has been loud, part cautious optimism, part raw excitement. After all, this isn't a small update to a niche title. It's one of the most important RTS franchises in gaming history getting another shot. And with RTS games slowly creeping back into the mainstream, this announcement feels perfectly timed, tapping into nostalgia while also hinting. Let's talk about King Art Games, because their involvement is probably the biggest surprise here. RTS fans might know them from Iron Harvest, released in 2020. A game that drew praise for its mix of infantry tactics, mechanical walkers, and a decent focus on base building. Iron Harvest wasn't flawless, but it proved the studio has the chops to create something solid in the strategy genre. Now, stepping into the world of Warhammer 40K is a massive leap, both in terms of scale and expectations. The good news is that King Art has been upfront about their philosophy. They've already said Dawn of War 4 is about returning to the franchise's roots, which means going back to what made the very first game and its expansions so beloved. That's a big promise, and if they can deliver, it could be the comeback fans have been waiting years to see. So, what does return to the roots actually mean in practice? It means base building is back, front and center. That's right. After Dawn of War 2 ditched it entirely for more tactical squad-based play, and Dawn of War 3 tried to mix in MOBA-style elements, Dawn of War 4 is going all in on the classic formula. Requisition points, power nodes, defensive turrets, Waaagh banners, those familiar mechanics are returning. It's the kind of system that rewards long-term planning, careful resource management, and that thrill of building your empire while preparing for all-out war. For fans who missed that slower, more deliberate pace, this is huge. It's also a clear sign that King Art knows exactly what longtime players want. Strategy that feels big, complex, and satisfying, not stripped down or overly simplified. This move alone might be enough to win back players who drifted away after Dawn of War 2 and 3. The scale of Dawn of War 4 also sounds impressive right out of the gate. King Art is promising this will be the biggest Dawn of War at launch, and they're backing that up with details. 4 major factions will be playable from the start. The iconic Space Marines, the brutal Orks, the undying Necrons, and for the first time in the series, the Adeptus Mechanicus. Together, those factions will feature more than 10 playable commanders, over 100 units and buildings, plus customization tools like an army painter and in-game editor. It's an ambitious setup, and it signals that the developers want players to feel like they have a wealth of options right from day one. Considering how much of the Warhammer 40K universe is about diversity and scale, this feels like the right move. Start big, and give fans the sense that they're diving into something massive and alive. One of the biggest reveals tied to Dawn of War 4 is its campaign. It won't just be a generic set of missions, it's a full 4-part narrative, one campaign for each of the 4 factions. Even more exciting, the action returns to Kronus, a location fans will remember from the Dark Crusade expansion of the original Dawn of War. This time, though, the events are set about 200 years later, giving both old and new players a reason to be invested. Characters like Ork boss Gorguts and Space Marine Psyker Jonah Orion are confirmed to return, offering continuity with past games while keeping the story fresh. And to top it all off, the campaign is being written by John French, a veteran author from Warhammer 40K's Black Library novels. King Art says the story will have over 40 hours of cutscenes, non-linear elements, and replayability. Ambitious promises that, if fulfilled, could give fans one of the deepest single-player RTS campaigns ever. And it doesn't stop at the campaign. Multiplayer fans are getting plenty to be excited about too. Classic skirmish matches are returning, along with cooperative play, competitive modes, and even a revival of Dawn of War 2's fan-favorite Last Stand mode. For those unfamiliar, Last Stand is essentially a survival challenge where players team up to hold out against wave after wave of enemies. Bringing it back shows King Art isn't just chasing nostalgia. They're reviving the best parts of the franchise while expanding them for a modern audience. The multiplayer aspect has always been a cornerstone of Dawn of War, with fans sinking hundreds of hours into epic battles. And it looks like Dawn of War 4 is positioning itself to be just as robust. Having both a massive campaign and multiplayer suite ready at launch gives the game the kind of staying power RTS fans have been missing. Now, let's talk about something brand new, the Combat Director. This is King Art's innovative system designed to overhaul how units fight in melee combat. Normally in RTS games, units swing their weapons at thin air, and it's more about stats than actual animations. But here, every unit will lock onto an enemy and engage in properly choreographed animations. The result is battles that look dynamic and alive, almost cinematic, without sacrificing control. For hardcore strategy players, there's a little skepticism about whether this will interfere with micromanagement, but visually, it's undeniably impressive. It's the kind of feature that could make Dawn of War 4 stand out in a genre that often struggles with clunky or repetitive animations. If it works as advertised, the Combat Director might be one of those subtle but game-changing innovations that elevate the feel of the battlefield. As exciting as all of this is, there's also a bittersweet element. For many fans, it feels strange to see Dawn of War developed without Relic, the studio that gave us not only the original Dawn of War games, but also Homeworld and Company of Heroes. Relic is legendary in the RTS space, and their influence shaped the genre for decades. So yes, while King Art is a promising studio, there's a little sadness knowing that the original creators aren't at the helm anymore. It's the end of an era in some ways. That said, Relic's track record in recent years hasn't been spotless either, and King Art stepping in with fresh ideas might be the best thing for the series right now. Sometimes, a new perspective is what's needed to revitalize a franchise, and based on what's been shown, King Art seems committed to honoring the legacy while charting a new path forward. Dawn of War 3 is an important part of this conversation. When it released in 2017, it tried something bold by mixing in MOBA-style mechanics, hoping to capture the booming popularity of games like League of Legends at the time. But the gamble backfired. The game alienated many longtime fans who wanted classic RTS depth, and it never fully captured a new audience either. For some, the highlight of Dawn of War 3 ended up being its flashy reveal trailer, which says a lot about how the game was received. That failure cast a long shadow over the franchise, leaving people to wonder if we'd ever see another mainline entry. Dawn of War 4, then, isn't just another sequel. It's a redemption story. It's the chance to bring back what people loved while learning from past mistakes, and that's why so many players are cautiously optimistic about what's to come. Let's not forget the timing of this announcement, either. It comes just 1 week after the release of Dawn of War Definitive Edition, a remaster of the original game from Relic. That remaster was well received, reminding fans of why they fell in love with the franchise in the first place. It also acted as the perfect appetizer for what's coming next. In hindsight, it almost feels strategic. Give fans a polished version of the original classic, then drop the bombshell announcement of Dawn of War 4 right after. The nostalgia wave is strong, and King Art is clearly positioning this new entry as the spiritual successor to that golden era. For fans who spent years replaying the first game and its expansions, this timing feels like no coincidence. It feels like the baton being passed, with a promise that the future will reflect the best of the past. The factions themselves deserve more spotlight because they're such a huge part of the hype. Space Marines are, of course, the face of Warhammer 40K, bringing heavy armor, devastating firepower, and that unshakable lore presence. Orks, on the other hand, bring raw chaos and humor, turning every battlefield into a messy but entertaining slugfest. The Necrons, with their ancient, unstoppable armies, add a darker, more methodical style of play, and the real wildcard, Adeptus Mechanicus, enters the fray for the first time ever in Dawn of War. Known for their cybernetic augmentations and reliance on strange technology, they're bound to bring something unique to the table. Having these 4 factions at launch creates not only variety in playstyles, but also storytelling opportunities in the campaign. It's a solid starting lineup that feels both familiar and refreshing, hitting the sweet spot between nostalgia and novelty. The campaign setting on Kronus also ties this entry back to one of the most beloved expansions in the series, Dark Crusade. That expansion was hailed for its variety, depth, and replayability, and bringing players back to Kronus feels like a deliberate nod to that golden era. By setting the story 2 centuries later, King Art is creating continuity without being shackled to the past. Returning characters like Gorguts, the fan-favorite Ork boss, and Jonah Orion, the Space Marine Psyker, help build that bridge between old and new. With John French handling the narrative, there's reason to expect a story that respects the lore while adding depth and complexity. 40 hours of cutscenes is no small feat, and if done well, the campaign could stand alongside some of the best RTS narratives ever made. It's another example of King Art aiming high and giving players reasons to be invested. Visually and technically, Dawn of War 4 is shaping up to be impressive. The official screenshots shown during the reveal highlight ruined landscapes, icy battlefields, orc fortresses, and Adeptus Mechanicus war machines striding across the terrain. Combined with the combat director system, these details suggest battles that will not only feel massive, but also look spectacular. King Art is clearly aware that presentation matters just as much as mechanics in today's market. In an age where RTS games have to compete with the cinematic flair of action titles, giving players battles that are both strategically deep and visually stunning could be what sets Dawn of War 4 apart. If they can strike that balance, it could reinvigorate interest in the RTS genre beyond just Warhammer fans, appealing to strategy newcomers who crave spectacle as much as substance. In the end, the announcement of Dawn of War 4 feels like a turning point, not just for the Warhammer 40K franchise, but for the RTS genre as a whole. Base building is back. Factions are diverse, campaigns are ambitious, and multiplayer looks packed with options. Yes, Relic is no longer in the picture. And yes, King Art still has to prove itself on this massive stage. But everything revealed so far points to a project with vision and respect for the series' roots. For longtime fans, this is the moment they've been waiting for, a chance to dive back into the large-scale battles, strategic planning, and over-the-top chaos that made Dawn of War unforgettable. For newcomers, it might be the perfect entry point into a legendary franchise. The road to 2026 is going to be filled with updates, previews, and speculation. But one thing's already certain. Dawn of War is back, and it's aiming higher than ever.